Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Financial Chair series by Construction Wave. My name is Rory Butler. I'm the editor of Construction Wave. And our Financial Chair series is a relatively new platform where we discuss construction and financial matters in the industry with leading professionals and experts. And today I'm joined by James Smith, who is the Finance Director at HBC Construction Limited, which is a relatively newly formed company which launched following the sale of Henry Boot Construction to PWS Construction and was subsequently rebranded to HBC. James, welcome.
Thank you, Rory. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. Before we get into the interview proper, James, perhaps you can give everyone, a brief overview of your professional background in construction and finance, including at Henry Boot.
Yeah, of course. So I started my career back in the late 90s in finance. So I started within the practice side of accounting.
I've just lost you there, James.
As many will know.
Sorry, we lost the audio there. Do you want to just take that from you started in finance?
Yeah. Started in finance, so back in the late 90s. So I'm down the practice route. So there's two routes to go down. There's the practice route and the industry route. Now I inadvertently the practice route, as I've found that when I've interviewed for staff as well, I find the practice route is the better route to come into, and then you find individuals move out of practice into industry because they've got that strong financial background that can understand the set of accounts. Certainly construction, where we're looking at supplier numbers and doing the due diligence, to understand the set of accounts is crucial, really. So I started off in practice. Started back at a small firm in Leeds, Freedman Ross, which subsequently became Ford Campbell Freedman. I was there for nigh on 10 years before moving to another practice firm for 6 years. And then that's where my journey sort of into construction began in the start of 2012. So I worked for a company called GMI Construction from 2012 right the way through to my current role at Henry Boot Construction, then through to HBC. So Henry Boot Construction was 25. So I had a good sort of 13 years in the industry, starting as financial controller, covering various other roles as well within the finance team. So it was a relatively small team. Sort of learned quite quickly on the ground in industry, certainly the construction industry and the CIS and all the little nuances that occur in the construction industry. And almost then, I think 2019 was when I was officially promoted to finance director. So I had a 6-year run with the FD, and then joined Henry Boot Construction as finance director in January 25, and then moving on obviously to where we sit here today.
And did you say whereabouts are you today?
So I'm down in Dronfield Turner. I'm in our head office down at HBC Construction's head office. So it's south of Sheffield.
Okay, great. And you said that there's a new office on the horizon as well?
There is indeed. So, and we'll come on to, as we sort of work through the HBC and like my business partners, etc. So the three of us are up more Leeds way, and there is a new office on a lease up in Thorpe Park is the intention.
Oh, okay.
That's where we're looking at. There's it seems to be a hub of other contractors up there, and it's ideal. It's ideal, really, for again what we'll come on to later on in terms of our reach into up and down the UK. It just seems ideally located for us, just off the motorway.
Yeah.
So that'll be coming again probably April time, sort of start of Q2 really for us is where we're looking for that.
Okay. Thanks, James. I'd like to jump straight in and start with the new company, namely HBC Construction. So how and when did the idea to buy Henry Boot Construction come about, and why was this the right decision for Lee, Chris, and yourself?
So the idea came about. So we were approached to join Henry Boot Construction with the outline of a potential MBO. because the three of us sort of aren't getting any younger, so to speak. And it was almost, what do you call it, a now or never moment, potentially. It just felt right. Personally, big decision where I was 13 years, great role, nice and safe and everything else. But this just felt right. So we came into Henry Boot Construction with the outline, no promise of anything. It was the outline of a deal that we'd then come into the business, work within the business certainly for Q1. Chris joined a little earlier. Chris joined September previous to myself and Lee in January.
Mm-hmm.
Come in, meet the people, obviously sit down with PLC. And then it was sort of post-Easter, and Easter was quite late last year. So it was more May time when we really started getting into the crux of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So from when the deal was then ultimately announced in September, it was a 4-month window really where we sort of sat down and sort of got everything together, the SPA, etc. So the idea was there to come in, and it came from PLC, so the divestment and everything else. But the primary thing from Henry Boot PLC was they wanted the continuity of a construction business, because we have 100 staff, 120 now, and it was looking after 120 people. How do we protect that going forwards? And the MBO was the route they wanted to explore.
Okay.
And fantastic opportunity for the three of us. Came in, met everybody, and yeah, it sort of rolled from there really, right through to the 22nd of September where we exchanged. I think it was announced to the construction press, and then ultimately completed on the 31st of December.
Mm-hmm.
So, and going back to your point of why is it right for the three of us? Like I say, we're all of a certain age now, and my experience was 13 years in construction,
Mm-hmm.
in a finance role, senior finance role. Lee and Chris have been in it since university. It's all I've ever known. So from a commercial perspective, this, from a career point of view, this was almost sort of the end game, I suppose. Is that a way to phrase it? In that it's
ultimate goal.
This is us now for our careers. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you've answered the question, but are you three the sole owners of HBC?
We are indeed. So just picking up on your point, Rory, when you introduced me there. So how the deal was structured was the three of us are shareholders in a company called PWS Construction. So that entity has purchased the entire share capital of Henry Boot Construction under a loan note, which is in the press. So the company, and I've had the numerous conversations, as you can imagine, with moving everything over. The company, it was simply a change of ownership. The company name change, the company registration number at company's house is the same. So it's the same entity. So it's not a PWS that's launching. It's not a new business. It's Henry Boot Construction, renamed, rebranded with a new ownership. But it's got the same staff in there, the staff level of service. It's all continuity of service. It's got all the same systems, processes, procedures, which again, for the three of us is fantastic. It was a well-run construction company. It always has been. It needed that injection of work and that pipeline to come in, which we'll come on to later.
Yeah.
And that's, that the people here are absolutely fantastic. The 120 staff that we've got. I came into it and it immediately felt like the right place for me to be personally as well. And don't get me wrong, I think coming in alongside Lee and Chris always helps when you've got familiar faces. But I did think it'd feel strange for a few months, and it didn't. And I can't put my finger on why, other than everyone was so welcoming, and it just felt right from day one.
Right. So just staying with you three, what sort of unique or collective skill sets and abilities do you all bring? So you've got the financial background. What about Chris and Lee? What sort of strengths are they bringing?
So both Lee and Chris are QS background, so I'm from the commercial side of construction.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris is Group Commercial Director at HBC, and Lee is managing director.
Hmm.
So Chris oversees that commercial function, make sure the jobs are all reported correctly and running efficiently, and the subcontracts are also correctly. He heads that up. We've got a fantastic commercial director underneath him now. Recent promotion to Sam Cookson, who's been here, man and boy. So again, going back to the team that we had there. So Chris is that, and then we've got Lee as MD, and ultimately the work winning role is where Lee and Chris have sort of positioned themselves over the last year.
Hmm.
It was going out into the marketplace, particularly in the Yorkshire marketplace, and speaking to the existing contacts, and sort of building that pipeline of work up, and growing that turnover. Just going back to my point earlier, that was just seemed to be the missing. It just needed that work, and we're now seeing that come through. So yeah, work winning commercial, and then myself finance. But then obviously there's the all overseeing of the business now in our new roles as almost shareholders of the business as well.
Great. So getting back to, I know you've sort of said it's almost, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but almost like a kind of like for like in terms of all of the like assets that went from Henry Boot over to HBC Construction. It's just a sort of name change above the door, which we've seen recently rebranded, and the staff came with you as well. But are you able to speak to what kinds of assets and operations
Yeah,
you were able to acquire?
yeah. So again, we acquired the business as PWS, but yeah, it was the name above the door that changed. That was it. And again, the same company. So we contracts, everything continued. So any contract we're working on, there was no transferring or novation of contracts required. They
Mhm.
continued under this company, same legal entity, same company registration number. So we acquired the ongoing work in progress, the ongoing contracts. Yes, the assets in the business, but again, within a construction company, there's no stock. So you've got your ongoing projects, your work in progress, and then your assets are primarily your sort of what I'm speaking to you on today in laptops, computer equipment, and then desks, etc. So nothing major in terms of assets other than what's required day to day for
Mhm.
people to carry out their roles.
And just you sort of touched on it, but regionally, where are you based now? Are you looking mostly at Yorkshire or
From
branching out?
from an office perspective of Dronfield, and we're going to get the office in Leeds. From a work perspective, projects wise, we'll go up to the Yorkshire office will give us that reach up into Teesside,
Hmm.
and then down through into Yorkshire. And then this office will ultimately then service, and there'll be some cross fertilisation between the two offices, but depending who brings the work in. But this office will then service sort of the South Sheffield. It's always done. Henry Boot's been synonymous with Sheffield. So HBC will then sort of reach, this office will reach into Sheffield, a bit further north, but then back down into the East Midlands. Again,
Okay.
that's an area that we're keen to get into via this office. So sort of Yorkshire will give us that reach into Teesside, and this will hopefully give us that we can drop down into the East Mids as well.
And I see that you've today, or at least in the last few days, you've won a large contract with Network Rail as well.
Yes, so we've got an ongoing contract. So we've just finished one for Barnet Network Rail. So Barnet BMDU, and then we've got the Sheffield MDU is the one that will have been announced in the press recently. With
Yeah.
Network Rail, we've got a great relationship with Network Rail, and certainly the individual we deal with that network rail. So we're hoping for that to flourish into further work as well in the future.
So early days, I'm sure, but as you said, it's been a relatively sort of smooth transition, which is still going on, um, and a lot of the contracts that were in place are still in place and ongoing. Um, how are you kind of positioning the business going forward? You've mentioned Teesside, you've mentioned the East Midlands, you've mentioned Sheffield, but are there any other sectors that you might look to branch into? Again, I know it's early days, but what sort of revenues are you hoping to achieve in your first and second year, and what do you, James, as the FD, need to sort of prioritize to ensure that you meet those?
Yeah, so sector wise, I think we've got quite a good split already, where we sit at the moment. So the I&L is a big one for us.
Yeah.
To our previous, so Henry Boot Constructions, fellow subsidiary in Henry Boot Developments. They're very active in the I&L market. So we've done recently. We're on site for a project there at the moment, but we recently completed one. So the I&L is big for us, but the multi-room's a big sector for us as well. Again, there'll be press releases that'll be coming out. I won't say too much on some of these, but we are looking at some good multi-room schemes out there at the moment. I think the key thing for us, and what I've seen, is that split of public sector against private sector work.
Yeah.
We're keen to try to keep that balance. We don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. From my point of view, from a finance point of view, public sector work is fantastic, because it's almost like to call it money in the bank, isn't it? And not that private sector isn't as such, but it just the public sector work is, and that's what HBC and Henry Boot previously have been great at. They've got a lot of public sector work, so that's something we want to continue.
Yeah.
But the skill set, again, going back to Lee and Chris, is the private sector, the contact in the private sector, and that's what we're trying to bring in. The I&L, the urban regeneration, the multi-room, and many others, and then sort of contract sizes. It sounds from 5 mil, sub 5 mil for the right project, but then anything up to 50 million. And we wouldn't take too many of them on at one time, of course, because what I'm coming on to say around our turnover, we would like to see year one, when we came as a business plan and presenting pre-MBO, we targeted 110 million for 2026. But I'm actually really pleased to confirm we've secured 110 million for this year.
Great.
So we've got that in a couple of PCSAs to work through, and there may be some debate out there of whether PCSA take that as secured or not. But 110 million, we are very, very confident we will hit our plan, and we will hit the margin that goes alongside that plan in year one.
Mm-hmm.
Year two, then up to 120 million, with a bit of inflation on top. It should naturally get there. It may even get there this year. We don't want to run too fast.
Mm-hmm.
But we see ourselves almost topping out at this. This is a 5-year deal to pay off the loan note. We always said we see ourselves topping out at 150 million. If we can hit 150 million within that 5-year period, sustainable growth, get to the 150, then we'll have a very, very good business.
Yeah. You've obviously got quite a storied career in finance and latterly in construction. Is there anything from your professional life, either at GMR Construction or was it Friedman's as well? Is there anything from sort of key learnings from those places, formative experiences or transferable skills that you think will really kind of serve the business in this new endeavor? And can you speak to any in particular?
No, I think I think more like I started with the practice background gives you that understanding of a set of accounts, and this will be boring to some people, but if you can understand the balance sheet of P&L and the cash flow, you can pick up anyone's accounts and then start to point to where there's a problem potentially and why that's risky. And I think that skill set that you pick up quite early on is a transferable skill then into an industry, going back into where I started in construction. And yes, when I first started, I almost didn't need that because that wasn't my role. But then as you sort of start to move up in that role, and particularly in construction where we deal with a number of supply chain partners, and as our clients will do with us, we need to understand their numbers. If we're putting a contract in front of a subcontractor for millions or even hundreds of thousands of pounds, we want to make sure that they are financially robust. So as part of the procedures we have here, the orders above a particular figure come to myself and Chris, but then I'll do the detailed subcontractor due diligence on those. So whilst I have a finance team who run the day-to-day of the finances, I still want to be involved at that level of being able to review. And I think that's a key part of the subcontractor appointment process,
Yeah.
is understanding the numbers, because in certain packages, there'll be some that aren't as crucial. If there's a problem with a subcontractor, nobody wants to see a subcontractor fail. But if there is a issue with a subby, there's certain trades within that are majorly impactful on our business. So we've got to make sure that we've got all that boxed off as well in the due diligence we've done. So I think from my point of view, coming into HBC, from where we're starting from in terms of the MBO, it's massively important where we are working with the right supply chain.
And would you say, just a tangential question on what you just said, would you say that level of sort of hands-on involvement that you like to do, would you say that's typical of a lot of contractors, or would you say that's a practice that you've observed might be missing?
It could be missing. I can't really speak for anyone because I've only ever worked previously at GMI, then now at HBC.
Yeah.
So we brought that into we had it previously, we've got it here. I would imagine a lot of places do that. However, the hands-on feel that we have here certainly as well. Going back to Lee and Chris, Lee and Chris sit in the tender launch meetings. They'll sit in the tender sign-off meetings, or one of them will. We'll make sure they're in there. And that's not to undermine anyone else's role at HBC. That's just us as new shells of the business, making sure that one of us is around and that we're comfortable with the contracts we're signing up to. Ultimately, we've got a balance sheet to grow over a 5-year period, and that it's okay growing turnover, but the jobs have to be profitable as well. So it's just making sure. So hands-on, Rory, is actually one thing that the three of us have been sort of all the way through our careers. I worked with Lee for 8 years in the previous role, and Chris for 5 years, and we've worked very well together for that period of time. But we are very, very hands-on.
Yeah. I've noticed in recent years that the role of the finance professional and the FD and the CFO, which was once a kind of sort of backroom operation, it's become a more sort of front of house identity within the business, and it's kind of critical for the overall identity of the company and running of the company. So I've observed that the finance people in these companies are really they prefer it when they have a more hands-on role with the operations of the company. And
I think it's enjoyable. It makes it more enjoyable, and to get more involved, and certainly sort of in my stuff in the finance team here. Yes, they're in the day-to-day, and what I'm quite conscious of is you can quite easily just get involved with looking at spreadsheets.
Yeah,
you could be doing anything. So what I'm keen on is, and I spoke to my team about, getting out on sites more. Yes, there's a workload to deal with, and sometimes it'll be, well, I can't do it because we've got a deadline for this, but just spend a day or even half a day, just visit a site, see what we do out there, get to meet the site teams, because site teams work and predominantly in this. They won't see there's 120 people here, and the number of people won't cross each other's path for years because they move from job to job.
Yeah.
So it's good I like to see the office staff just get out to site and just see what we do, and those that show a genuine interest in it, it's great.
Yeah, more effective for company strategy, sort of top-down management, and also you need to personalize your experience of the company as well.
Yeah, indeed, that's it.
So just looking at the construction landscape, the UK economy, also, what are some of the challenges that you, Lee and Chris, have identified in branching out as a new construction company? And I realized that it's the name above the door that's changed, but this is a new venture for you all. And are there any specific trends or changes that you're paying particular attention to?
No, I think for us, coming in from where we were, I think yes, there were certainly we've had some learnings throughout our careers. But I go back to it's for me, it goes back to, and I apologize, I keep coming back to it. It's the
Sorry.
robustness of financials. And clients will do it to us, but we do it both ways. We speak with our clients and we do our research on where that funding's coming from a private
Hmm.
sector. Where's that funding stream coming from? Can we obtain payment guarantees to secure? That's a massive one for us to make sure that money comes in so that we then flow that down to our supply chain. But yeah, I think for me key. It's the supply chain and almost the. I think one big thing alongside the supply chain is there's this potential around the sort of the construction skills gap as well. I think
Yeah.
yes, we've got the grandfather rights that are disappearing, but sort of working from bottom up really. And I've got two daughters, so I'm not saying they're more they're young enough now, and one of them's talking about wanting to be a physio, the one's not, so they don't want to be near construction at the moment. But when you go into schools, and I'm listening to what my daughter's doing GCSE now. There's no route anywhere within the secondary school that touches on construction.
Hmm.
So how do yes, we're getting people into the industry post university, but it's where's that course within a secondary school where somebody can start to learn about construction from the age of 16 onwards? I think you bring that in and you start to get a lot more skill in the industry, because is there going to be that skills gap at some point? Is there that? Yes, we're getting people through, but it'd be great to bring them in earlier. Through we have apprenticeship schemes, of course we do,
Yeah.
but that is something that has struck me more personally because of the level I'm getting involved with my daughter now at GCSE. It's interesting. There's nothing out there.
Yeah, and as you say, historically, it's always been through the apprenticeship schemes, which is sort of a bit of an informal process as well, because unless it's through a college where there's some kind of official accreditation, sometimes an apprenticeship is kind of a loose term for just joining an existing small contractor as a teenager and learning the trade on site and calling it an apprenticeship. But yeah,
It is. It is. I think even something at GCSE level. I mean, that's going back a couple of years, isn't it? But even that, to give them a grounding in for people that show an interest,
yeah,
because there's a lot of people in the industry that are my age, with children that age, that love to be starting there, but they're having to do other GCSEs that then get through that. But if you genuinely show an interest at school in it, you're going to perform better.
yeah,
Yes, you've got your core subjects to do, but alongside having to sit through not any particular subjects, but if you were doing something you're really passionate about, I think that would be great. I mean, one thing I will pick up on there along the apprenticeship schemes, I mean, they are fantastic.
yeah,
HBC Construction has over 45% of our staff have come through the apprenticeship scheme,
yeah,
which is unbelievable if you
yeah.
think about. We've got 120 staff, and so I think it's 45% through the apprenticeship scheme. It's unheard of, really. And then an average length of service of 14 years.
Wow.
So there's something about the HBC that, yeah, and yet previously the Henry Boot, which it previously known, that is, I've never heard of it. It's fantastic, really. It's something we want to embrace and continue.
And as you say, it was interesting what you said about there being nothing really definitive at kind of the middle school level that would encourage youngsters to consider construction. But I
Mm.
guess it's not just about sort of saying, hey, you can, build things that have a legacy and impact on people's daily lives. It's really quite little things like reframing existing disciplines like yours, for instance, and saying, if you're good at
Yeah,
maths, you enjoy numbers, there's a career for you in construction. Or if what you said now about just encouraging people to get in there, if you're creative and you enjoy sort of creating campaigns, you could be a marketeer in construction and try and get more more youngsters
Yeah, of
involved,
course.
or
And I
rephrase
think
that.
where we try and plug that gap, yeah, where we try and plug that gap is across, our social value team that'll get out there in the towns we're working in, and get into schools and tell them about what we're doing. But that's almost, and that can run from year 1, 2, 3 at primary school through to the secondary school. But again, that's a day which is fantastic. It's a day in there, and it might get people thinking about it. But then they come out of that school, they might go home and tell the parents, "Oh, I've had a great day, we've done this." But then you can't follow up with anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing there to actually go forward with until you've got through GCSEs and potentially A level. So yeah, it'd be nice to see something in the future on that.
Yeah. And it's difficult to know what's the best strategy in construction. And, it's always, what's your cash flow, margins are razor thin. But is there anything,
Yeah,
there's nothing that you can really do to fully future-proof your business, except as you've expressed, like prudent financial and risk management. But are there any, I mean, you don't have to give me names or anything, but are there any contractors out there of any size or specialism who you not admire, but you respect their approach, just the way they work, their financial strategy, their performance, that sort of thing, who seem to be
yeah.
doing
I
it
think
right?
there's a number of contracts out there. It's our competition. We tender in projects against a lot of them day in day out, and there's a couple in particular that you've seen the growth within certain sectors over even in the 2000s through to where we are now. To have a balance sheet sat in the multi millions is a fantastic place to be.
Mhm.
Any business with a strong balance sheet, strong cash balances, that's making good margins, as you say, Rory, they are razor thin margins in main contracting. They are, but they're making the within construction a 2-3% margin. Net margin is a good result.
Yeah.
So the contractors are doing that and beyond, and they're building that on the balance sheet, strong cash balances, and predominantly getting on site, building on budget, on time, and the business works, doesn't it? So there's a number out there that we admire. Do we aspire to be any of those? Of course, from a numbers position, from delivery, but we want our own identity as well. And
Yeah,
we
of
want to
course.
go out there and build the HBC brand, let people know who we are as people, and who the business is. And so yeah, whilst we do respect a number of contractors out there, we're focusing on ourselves and building our building our balance sheet and our company,
Yeah.
and encouraging our people to develop as well through that, because that's one big thing, people development. Any business that invests in people development, you is
So just to
that
wrap
that is
up,
a massive thing for us. You don't have a business without your people.
yeah, so that brings us nicely on to the sort of final question, James. Then how would you summarize the ethos and values of HBC and distinguish it?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I said there around the apprenticeship scheme. I think the ethos and values of HBC is is almost can be explained by how I felt when I came in.
Hmm.
Going back to the point of, after working somewhere for 13 years, it should feel new. For a long time it didn't, and I think that's down to everybody here, the family feel that it brings.
Hmm.
And that's a word that can be, a phrase that can be thrown around quite
Yeah.
easily, but there is a genuinely family feel here. Everybody you sit in meetings, everybody's pulling in the same direction. We're all pulling for the same goal. So there's that ethos of the family feel is the really key one for us at HBC, and something that we want to continue, and we have done. We have done. Look, the MBO, just getting back onto the MBO and how that was received in the business. Myself, Lee, and Chris as three newcomers into the business. Getting to know the people before it was announced, it landed very well with
Hmm.
everybody. And it's easy for somebody to sort of, you can hear it third hand, but when people are saying it, yeah, it's great, but you're hearing it from all over, from different people, and that's nice, and we want to take that forward and really, going back to then people development, bring on the people, the trainees, but even the senior staff that, everyone's always continuing to learn.
Yeah.
The three of us are continuing to learn. So yeah, it's ultimately that family feel for me at HBC.
Yeah, and that
And the
professional
support that
development.
everyone can lean on each other and support each other.
Great. Okay, well, that's it. James, thank you for being with us today. I really appreciate you making the
No,
time.
thank you. No, thanks for inviting me on.
Of course. This episode will be out a week from now, so please do remember to subscribe to Construction Wave for that and updates for all upcoming Financial Chair episodes. You can also watch James by subscribing to our daily newsletter to see when this episode is published. And James, I hope we'll host you again in the future to track the growth of HBC.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Great. Thanks again. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Cheers. Take care.
Cheers.